Hi, this is Pastor Jim Driscoll of Christ Lutheran Church with the NCTV 45 thought for the day. It's always a topic of discussion. Why do we go through trials? God loved us. Don't you remember how your parents, teachers, coaches, bosses subjected you to trials? Like tests, your coach sending you for drills, maybe even the end of the game. Yeah, that was me. Our life is full of tests and trials, as one football coach told me when I was feeling picked on. If they stop yelling at you, they don't care anymore. Sure, why waste your time and breath on someone you don't think has any potential? God certainly has potential or sees potential in all of us. We were put here to live our lives to the best of our ability. God didn't put us here to just coast through life. No, He doesn't expect us to be some kind of superstars, but He didn't put us here to take up space and resources from others. We are expected to be productive and make our own lives. In Job 23:10, Job writes, "When He has tried me, I shall come forth as gold." Most of us who read the Bible know that God tries His own, disciplines His own, that it was to be some kind of success or some kind of punishment for things we did to offend Him. But Job gives me a different perspective to consider. He says, "I shall come forth as gold." I don't think he is talking of gold as in the yellow mineral we know, but as somehow the best Job could be, the highest stage we could ascend to, where God wants us to be, the gold standard. John MacArthur wrote, Job believed God was present and affirmed his commitment to God's purpose in this test and continued to obedience to God's word, which were the most important issues in his life. That Job came forth as gold in his faith and God's will, even through this grueling trial he was subjected to. Okay, I don't know how this ends, but the process turns us to gold, to something, someone of value, some certainly of value to God, to our fellow man. Regardless of the outcome, the result is turning you into something far more valuable in the world, but to eternal purposes. I'm Jim Driscoll, the pastor of Christ Lutheran Church, 1302 East Washington Street, Newcastle, Pennsylvania. Check us out on the web. It's christlutheran-newcastle.org. Questions, comments, contact me on the website. For a transcript of today's thought, go to revjamesdriscolldriv.com. Sunday worship is at 10:30 a.m. All are welcome. With the NCTV 45 thought for the day, God bless your day. Hi, it's Pastor Jim Driscoll of Christ Lutheran Church with the NCTV 45 thought for the day. The book of Job is fascinating. It starts by God calling Job a righteous man. He talks of Job as the gold standard, the best of mankind. God rarely calls someone such a high level. There should be no doubt this person is highly virtuous, which Job was. His four friends, quote, come along and presume to know what is happening and badger Job to admit to whatever sin Job committed to bring all this catastrophe upon himself. Well, his friends were dopes, which God finally chooses to point out to them. But then God takes on Job after Job is broken down and said, yeah, God, why am I coping with all this? I've been faithful to you, and this is how I end up. Well, God finally responds to Job, although he didn't have to. Faith is about trusting what God is doing in your life. I've certainly been subjected to trials and raised these questions to God myself. My trials haven't been as devastating as Job's, but I know what he is thinking. God replies to Job's complaints for a number of pages. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? That's God's sarcasm. Now gird up your loins like a man, and I will ask you, and you instruct me. More sarcasm. That's Job 38, 1 through 4. This is something that today's generation should really take to heart. There's a lot of smart guys out there who are sure they know more than God and presume to question him as if he is some kind of addle-brained old man. FYI, since you're the one who seems to be so stupid, God is the same as he has always been. He created everything, including you. I don't care about your education or your IQ. You have no clue when it comes to God, neither do I. And I'm more clue than you. And your pride will bury you, condemn you to eternal punishment for your presumption. That's what you get. If you're as smart as you think you are, you better rethink that there is an intelligence that is infinitely greater than yours. You couldn't imagine how to start creation, which God has brought about and continues to sustain. I'm Jim Driscoll, the pastor of Christ Lutheran Church, 1302 East Washington Street, and that is in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. Check us out on the web. It's christlutheran-newcastle.org. Questions, comments, contact me on the website. For a transcript of today's thought, go to revjamesdriscollmdiv.com. Sunday worship is at 10:30 a.m. All are welcome with the NCTV 45 thought for the day. God bless your day. Hi, this is Pastor Jim Driscoll of Christ Lutheran Church with the NCTV 45 thought for the day. One of the most fascinating books, many fascinating books in the Bible, for those who say, oh, the Bible is so boring. You've obviously never read it or you can't read. Job finally breaks down after he has catastrophically lost all that God has given him, which was substantial, and Job is lashed out at God for all he is suffering. God continues to respond to Job, and for all the smart guys out there who are convinced that Job should be taking their advice, they know what God should do, right? Yeah, right. Does seem true. People who are in some sense intelligent but are so arrogant, they never seem to understand where their understanding is so fallacious. God continues his response to Job's attack. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who set its measurements, since you know? Or who stretched the line on it? Or what were the bases sunk? Or who laid its cornerstones? Smart guys in the world tell you the way it is, and they have no idea the big picture. When one really considers what creation is, they begin to realize how incredibly complicated it is. When God asks who set its measurements, you have to really understand how precise the measurements of the world are that keep us alive. If it was slightly different, man could not survive. If the moon were slightly further away, the oceans would become sewers. The agitating effect of the tides to clean the oceans caused by the moon would not be effective. If the moon was slightly closer, the tides would be out of control. Think about this. You may know what you know, but you and me hardly know anything of creation. How about when we rely on God instead of our understanding? I'm Jim Driscoll, the pastor of Christ Lutheran Church, 1302 East Washington Street, Newcastle, Pennsylvania. Check us out on the web. It's christlutheran-newcastle.org. Questions, comments, contact me on the website. For a transcript of today's thought, go to revjamesdriscollmdiv.com. Sunday worship is at 10:30 a.m. All are welcome with the NCTV 45 thought for the day. God bless your day. Hello. Speaking. Hi. Yep. $2 tomorrow. Okay. Um, right. Yeah. No, that'd be good. I'm pretty sure I can get that done. Might be running a little late, just because I don't know really. I'm new to this area, so I'm not sure getting back and forth. So, but I will make it as soon as possible. Yeah. Eh, oh, okay. Sure. Oh, great. Okay. Sounds great. All right. Thank you. Here. God bless. Bye. Hi, it's Pastor Jim Driscoll of Christ Lutheran Church with the NCTV 45 thought for the day. We're in the book of Job, and after a lot of description and kvetching, God finally chooses to respond. Job, you need some perspective. Like a lot of smart guys in today's world, 3,000 years later, things you can't begin to imagine. You may know how to make money, but that doesn't mean you have the slightest clue about what the world is about you. Try being a church pastor and have somebody tell you the way it should be. There are often some good ideas, but more often it's someone who sells widgets who has no idea about anything else, but has no clue how complicated the world around them is or how deep and vast God is. God continues to address Job, who God has acknowledged is righteous and worthy, but that doesn't mean he's God. You know the difference between God and physicians. God doesn't think he's a doctor. It's more of here's more of God's response to Job. When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy, or who enclosed the sea with doors when bursting forth, it went out from the womb. When I made a cloud its garment and thick darkness its swaddling band, and I placed boundaries on it and set a bolt and doors. God is trying to get Job and us surely to understand how complicated the universe is. It certainly couldn't have happened by accident. People have calculated the probability of the universe coalescing by accident, and the probability is so incredibly remote, it's not even credible to discuss an accidental universe. And for people who claim to be scientists who say that it is, that's just ridiculous. It's completely, if you do not include an all powerful creator, you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. We need to really hear God describing to Job what reality really is. It is all in God. I'm Jim Driscoll, pastor of Christ Lutheran Church, 1302 East Washington Street, and that is in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. Check us on the web, christlutheran-newcastle.org. Questions, comments, contact me on the website. For a transcript of today's thought, go to revjamesdriscollmdiv.com. Sunday worship is at 10:30 a.m. All are welcome with the NCTV 45 thought for the day. God bless your day. Hi, this is Pastor Jim Driscoll of Christ Lutheran Church with the NCTV 45 thought for the day. We're talking about the book of Job and how applicable it is to postmodern smart guys. We all think that we are smarter than God, and you should listen to our completely unfounded, uninformed, and unfounded opinion. I said that twice. Why would God do that? He created everything. He is transcendent over all creation. He is he knows why should he give our opinion even a moment? He actually does, but it's usually show us how wrong we are and how our faith should be in him, not in our simple little opinions. He continues to explain to Job how he really should trust in God and not concern himself with his friends or anyone else's opinion but God's. God continues to illustrate for Job, and I, God, said, thus far you shall come, but no farther, and here shall your proud waves stop. Have you ever in your life commanded the morning and caused the dawn to know its place, that it might hold the ends of the earth and the wicked shaken out of it? I'm Jim Driscoll, the pastor of Christ Lutheran Church, 1302 East Washington Street, Newcastle, Pennsylvania. Check us out on the web. It's christlutheran-newcastle.org. Questions, comments, contact me on the website. For a transcript of today's thought, go to revjamesdriscollmdiv.com. Sunday worship is at 10:30 a.m. All are welcome with the NCTV 45 thought for the day. God bless your day.